Well, I will say this: if I could just based on my experience, the thermometer of the country in music education right now, it would do us. I think that just us in music education, we're kind of behind when it comes to incorporating music technology, and we need to take it upon ourselves to do more with music technology. And I'm not a very tech savvy person. Um, it's some people and even some students that can do stuff with a cell phone that would like take me all day to figure out. So that's one area that we need to like make ourselves more well versed in, because of right now what is happening in the country. And not only that, we need to also make technology a little bit more streamlined so that we can access our students, our clientele, if you will, um, in a manner that they can receive, because it's so hard to learn and receive music instruction when you're at home. Um,
What you just said embodies a whole lot of my mindset. Like that encompasses a huge chunk of what I believe to be true. Because I taught in public schools for 14 years. I was a public school elementary music teacher at the same school for 14 years. I had 800 students and it was just me. So
mhm.
that's why I was saying earlier, like sometimes I really felt like it was easier to be in the Army than it was to be a public school elementary music teacher. I really think we do our students a disservice by not trying to keep up. And I know things change constantly, but I think we do our students a disservice by not meeting them where they are.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that is just such a huge aspect. And this year alone has just been an eye opener, not only of the desperate need that we need for more technology in the classroom, but just how limited a lot of people have access to quality technology. In my district, all of my students have receive a Chromebook, but they're not the best Chromebooks in the world. One day I got to school during pre-planning, my laptop was acting up, so I had to take it to the tech guy. So I had to use a student Chromebook in the meantime. And what I could say, for lack of better words, it was garbage. It was trash. I kept getting kicked out of the meet. I couldn't get on. Like the audio was jacked up. Like you name it. You know, and this is what students, this is all some students, most students have to learn from throughout this pandemic. And then we're sitting up here like, okay, well, why aren't these students attending the Google Meet? Why aren't they turning an assignment? And part of that is due to user error. It is what it is. But a lot of that is just simply just what they have access to. Right now I'm kind of taking it upon myself to step up my technology, because like I'm the kind of person where if it works, I'll use it until the wheels fall off that thing. I will not invest more money into something if I got something that works. I used a Mac. I used an iBook 4, like one of the first MacBooks, and that I rode that MacBook for like 10 years. It even took me through grad school at Florida State. I think I got that MacBook maybe back in 2002, 2003, somewhere 2004, somewhere in that time frame. And finally, around about maybe 2016, that laptop just finally gave out. It just could not give anymore, and that's how I am. So, but at the same time, it's just like with the age that we're living in, we have to do a better job of keeping up with current technology. We've gone from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G. Well, we're on 6, 7G now.
I think we still stuck at 5 for the moment, but
Yeah,
tomorrow it'll change.
yeah. Who knows? Who knows? And it was just like, I had no choice but to buy a new desktop, because like when I purchased it, I got. I'm just gonna say that I got. I bought a Mac Pro, which is a desktop. It's the tower, and it was still pretty much a beast, but it had been at that time it had been upgraded as much as you could update anything. And now I still got it 6 years later, and it's finally time for me to put that computer to rest. The computer itself just could not keep up with the data that it was receiving. It was like certain websites I couldn't open. I couldn't see everything that was on the website. I would get pop-ups at random moments. The screen would close, like different things, just because the computer itself just could not process the data that it was receiving. that's me coming from a home that didn't really have a computer. I think my first computer in college was literally a computer that my grandmother, who was a custodian for the school district, they had some old computers that they kept down in the basement of the school district office. My grandmother talked to some folks, and she got like a CPU and a monitor and a keyboard and gave me that. That was the computer that I took to college. And I rode that thing. When I say I rode that thing, I probably rode that thing until I got that MacBook. And I was at home, no internet, but I was typing up all my reports. I was typing up all my essays and everything. Right there on that computer. That's all I had. I didn't really come from a family that was very well off,
I'm not laughing at that.
I know.
Yeah.
You could probably relate to some
Absolutely.
of that. So
I relate to a lot of what you're saying, because we grew up poor, but I didn't know we were poor till I was grown up. I was like, wait a minute, how did my parents do that? The computer I had was the Encyclopedia Britannica and the library card. That was my computer. I don't even think my first computer was a laptop that I bought after I graduated from FAM. That was it. It's like I bought a MacBook Pro. It was a 15-inch or 16-inch, like 2002. I graduated in 2000 from FAM. And I was like, ooh, look at me. I have this big book. Like you said, I rode that thing till it couldn't ride anymore. What did I do? I'm gonna get the MacBook Air because it's lighter. I rode that thing. Like I told you before, I have a kid that's older than that that laptop.
Yeah.
And today my brand new 2020 laptop has arrived. The MacBook Pro M1 something whatever. But it has the brain power. I kept running into the same issues you were talking about, like just stuff not working the way you want it to, not being able to access and run some of the programs. Like Logic is a heavy program. It uses a lot of brain power.
It does.
Keep crashing. I'm like, hoping I saved it, I got deadlines to meet, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That was part of the reason why I kind of like let go of the laptop and got a desktop, because I needed that power. And then laptops get a lot of wear and tear because they're constantly being closed and taken to a different location all the time. So it's not stationary. So the parts kind of get, if you're like me, I come home tired, I just throw stuff down, not thinking about it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, laptops get beaten up internally a lot, and they just don't have the power that a desktop have. I mean, the PC, and I hate to say it because I went ahead and just made a logical and practical decision to leave Mac and get a PC. I had to do it because either way it goes, the PC that I would have purchased would have still been better than the current Mac that I had. And I just did not have the funds to purchase a brand new Mac. I mean, a Mac Pro, like the last generation, not the new generation, the last generation is still $2,000. And they don't carry it in the store. If you order a MacBook, they manufacture it for you and then ship it to you. Like, that's right. Those are some expensive computers, and I just did not have $2,000 to buy another Mac Pro. I just didn't. I was like,
actually, thankfully, I mean, not thankfully, but like the pandemic it's hitting everybody differently. But what it has afforded for me is the way my business is structured. I was able to apply for some government funding, and I got some government funding. So that was a huge cushion. And I really just got that so I could keep paying myself and possibly hire another teacher. Let me get this backup money just in case. I needed to make sure I could still pay myself to do what I do here. I don't pay myself a lot, but I pay myself something, Mm-hmm. And then, so that kind of helped set me up to where, I had the business structure set up to where, when people are asking for certain documents, hey, here you go. I got it. Bing, bam, boom. And lo and behold, I came across some little Facebook post like, hey, we're giving Black-owned businesses grants. And I applied. I'm like, I'm going to get this money, and this money going to buy my next laptop. I'm not going to use that other government money that I got. I'm going to let that sit there. But that's really me being like frugal and bougie at the same time, like frugally bougie. It's like, I want the MacBook, whatever, but I don't want to spend a lot of money on it. And if I have to spend my money on it, let me try and get somebody else's money to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So What is your background as an educator? What is your contribution to the music education industry?
Um, let's see. Well, of course, you already know I got my bachelor's in music education from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, where I was a member of the March 100 for 6 long years. Dr. White kept me out there on band scholarship. And then I got my master's from Florida State University in music education and instrumental music. I actually got back into Florida A&M and started taking a few undergraduate courses in composition. I started working on a second bachelor's there, but I wasn't able to finish due to some administrative things, logistical things that we just could not work out at the time. So I ended up getting a job and going back home. And now just recently got accepted into a second master's program, Vermont College of Fine Arts, for music composition. So I'm excited about that. I'm quasi excited about that because it's just like, yeah, let's get this party started, you know. And another part is just like, shoot, I still got to teach. I still got to keep a job. You know, my students still need me. You know, my teaching career, I've taught elementary school, I've taught middle school, I've taught high school, I've taught in public schools, charter schools. Right now, I'm currently teaching at a public school, Dutchtown Middle School in Hampton, Georgia. Which is in Henry County, about maybe 20 minutes south of downtown Atlanta. So we're still in the metro area outside the 285 loop. If you're familiar with, so this is my second year at Dutchtown, and we have about maybe 250 students within our band program. And I'm the only director now, and you know, we try to service our students as much as we can. The two directors at the high school, Wilson Gastama and Dr. Jeffrey Hughley, they do an outstanding job. They are a wealth of knowledge. And, you know, I'm truly blessed just to be able to work with band directors of this stature and just the knowledge and just expertise over the pedagogy of band. You know, I'm just really, truly in a blessed place. So that has kind of been the crux of my career as a music educator. Probably the last, I think I'm in year 11. This is year 11 for me. You know, I'm blessed to make it this far, and you know, Lord willing, you know, we're gonna go even further.
Yeah, this is year 20. 20 go. This is year 20 going into year 21 for me. So
wow.
It's like saying it out loud. I'm just like, you see why I was like trying to cover them gray hairs. Okay. Yeah.
Look at it. It's all good. Okay. It's
yeah.
all good.
I'll take it.
It's wisdom. It's wisdom. That's what it is.
Yeah, I earned that wisdom. Let me tell you, because I remember when I first started teaching. It was the year 2000, and about the most technology we would use at that time, we still had the old school projectors. We still had the TVs being wheeled out on a cart. We had some software programs like Music Ace, or I think that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Like, you know, you load it into the CD-ROM and they play something music related. And I would use a projector and we would collectively play the little games. That was what music technology was for me at that time, or being able to use tape recorders and have the students record themselves and listen back. Technology's come a long way. What was it like for you pre-pandemic, and what are things like for you now as an educator as far as music technology?
Oh, well, of course, you know, one of the major pushes in education is to have more technology in the classroom. And I think that, you know, of course, you know, there was the use of projectors. Of course, you know, the standard programs that you would use as an educator: PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Excel, Microsoft 360, the email system, all of these, the electronic grade book that we now have. Because when I first started teaching, they were phasing out the paper grade book, and then they started the electronic grade book. So that was, you know, for me, you know, being a little old school, that was different. Me trying to go into the classroom, then like, oh snap, I got this paper grade book, and now we got to use this. Everything's online, and nowadays parents can actually log on and see what the grades are in real time. You know, they don't need a progress report anymore.
Which
is a double-edged sword, because you have those parents who do check periodically, and then you have those parents who don't check and then claim that they don't know what's going on. And it is what it is.
And I guess I get to see it from both sides, because I know that it takes time for that grade to get up into the system. I know that it takes time for things to be graded. I understand. As an educator, I understand. Thankfully, I'm not that parent most of the time who's going off on a teacher unless something had happened.
Yeah. So, you have that technology, in the band room, one of the most valuable tools that I've come across is the Beat Doctor. I use that religiously with my students, especially with the tuning function, or rather the pitch function and the beat function. I use that religiously with my group. When I was in high school, that was a regular part of my instruction. Of course, music software is very important to music educators. Finale, I've been using Finale since I've been using music notation software, since before I purchased my first subscription back in 2003 for Finale. I'm an arranger. I love to arrange and write. I wrote a little bit for Block Band Music for a couple of years, and I published with them. And then I kind of left them to focus more on getting my master's degree. But of course, I write for my students, and even in the middle school setting, I'm still arranging for students. And a lot of it right now is simply a lesson or a scale or try to simplify a piece of music that we're working on. But I do a lot of writing, or try to do as much writing as I possibly can. Since the pandemic started, I actually got into this little arrangers challenge, which was really good. It kind of got my juices going. As far as writing, but I didn't like it because of just some of the way that some of the things kind of went down, and some of the judging was a bit biased. And I said, I'm good with this. I'm just going to focus on composing. So it's kind of just got frustrating when I would see top tier arrangers, like really good arrangers, be put out, and then somebody else who is somewhat subpar is still in. Not trying to call anybody bad, but it just became frustrating when you looked around and you saw some of the, quote unquote, college directors and professors, and you're writing better than them, 10 times better than them. And you're thinking to yourself, like, wow, you teach college.
There is definite bias in our industry. It tends to skew one way, and there's usually a dominant perspective that often gets shared. And we're here to break those barriers.
Right. So I'm gonna leave that alone. I apologize. Yeah. I got on my soapbox for a second.
No, this is what we need to do. It needs to be said. It needs to be verbalized, and it needs to be acknowledged, because protecting others' feelings is something that we don't have to be concerned with so much these days. I would say I'm saying protecting other sugarcoating stuff is what I'm saying. You just got to say what it is. And let chips fall where they may. You didn't say anybody by name. You haven't said anything that you wouldn't say directly to those people or persons, or those theys and them, however they choose to identify. There's a lot that I'm just fed up with. I've been kicked out of many a group for saying what I said. And I said what I said. There's nothing that I have said that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've just learned in my old age that it's better for me to be tactful. You already know that I come from the marching 100, and you already know how we can be. And it doesn't really help that I got a little bit of Marine Corps in me. So, sometimes it is better for me just to not say anything at all, because I'll surprise the folks, because they don't see that side of me very often, and I don't want them to. But anyway, music technology in the classroom before the pandemic started, I was really trying to emphasize, mind you, I'm at a brand new school. They're used to doing things a certain way. I'm the new guy who is taking place of their old beloved band director that had been there for like 8 years. And I was trying to get them to commit to doing their playing assessments via Google Classroom, simply doing a video of it, submitting it in Google Classroom. And you would think that this generation would be more receptive to that. And a lot of them weren't. And even at the high school level, a lot of them just kind of just like, well, why can't I just play it for you in person? Which is good. But at the same time, that recording aspects allows them to make mistakes and then fix their mistakes and then resubmit if they need to. So that was something that I was trying to work on. And then I kind of see I wasn't really getting a whole lot of traction with that. And then next thing you know, COVID-19 hits. And that becomes the only way that they can do a submission. So Since then, the use of technology has just simply changed. My district has adopted Google Classroom, and from talking to different educators who teach in different districts, some of them have a set programs and softwares that they use, and then some of them don't have that, and then some of them are strictly prohibited from using other different softwares like Zoom. We can use Zoom, but they encourage us, or rather, they make it a requirement for us to use Google Classroom, Google Meet, all the Google stuff, and that's where pretty much we post our live. And of course, we have Infinite Campus, which is our digital gradebook system, and basically the brain of the school. Everything is in Infinite Campus. We also use, of course, I just said we use Google Meet. We can use Zoom. And in my personal opinion, just based off of this year and what I've seen, Zoom is better for band. Zoom is better for band. Not saying that there's anything wrong with Google Meet, but Google Meet just simply isn't equipped to handle everything that happens within a band room or even a regular classroom. One thing that we discovered in the very beginning of the year, and I won't share the full story, is that when you let somebody in Google Meet, anybody can share their screen. And we had a disaster with that during one of our during open house, where somebody got in outside of our email system, because you have to let people in and anybody can get in, and they decided to show an inappropriate video. So that's with Google Meet. That's one thing that is kind of a drawback when you're in a teaching setting, because you do have some students that will come into a classroom and disrupt the class, and they'll play something inappropriately or something that's going to disturb the rest of the class, or they'll come in and kick the teacher out the classroom. And then Google Meet just is not, it can't carry the full load. And I'm not saying that Zoom is perfect, but Google Meet sometimes can be a little bit glitchy when it comes to certain things. So we use Google Meet, and not people at Google, please don't get mad with me. Don't get angry with me. I'm just telling you what we've experienced, and hopefully a lot of those issues will work themselves out. But that's simply been our experience with Google Meet. It's been challenging because one of the pitfalls that we have is that students don't turn their cameras on. In this age of COVID-19, that's the new skipping. And we have to give them grace. We have to give them grace because we don't know what their situation is. Perhaps they're embarrassed by their home background. Perhaps the camera on their Chromebook doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Or one thing that I've recently discovered, that if their cameras are on, the Meet is running really slow and grainy, mm-hmm. and they can get kicked out of the Google Meet. We've had that happen. Students get kicked out of Google Meet, and then they have to log back in because either the software or the hardware can't simply handle just all the data that's coming in.
Yeah, that bandwidth is too heavy.
Yeah, so we've had that happen. We've had power outages where we haven't been able to teach our students who are at home. We've had the internet or the Wi-Fi in our school go out, and fortunately, I had the ground cable, and I just plugged that in, the Ethernet cable, and I plugged that in. I was able to still have Google Meet with my students, whereas other teachers didn't have access to that because nobody felt like they needed them, so they didn't keep up with them or didn't get one. And I just, when they gave me my stuff, I was like, hey, give me that, because if the Wi-Fi goes out, mm-hmm. I have it. So that was a good thing for me. So those are just some of the issues that we have been dealing with technology, the technology aspect. In the classroom, I have used smart music. Well, actually, let me talk about the hardware mm-hmm. that I use on a daily basis, and then I can talk about the software. The hardware that I use on a daily basis, of course, I use my laptop. I have actually adopted using a digital microphone, a condenser microphone, and I had to order much of the equipment myself because I had the condenser mic, but I did not have the I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's the stand that goes with the condenser mic. It sits inside and it's the shock mount. That's what it's called.
Gotcha.
I didn't have a shock mount for the condenser mic because those mics are so sensitive. They have to have a shock mount. Mm-hmm. With it, as well as the stand. So I had to order that off Amazon, and then I had to order the USB conversion cable to XML. I believe that's what you call the microphone cable. It's called XML.
Or XLR.
XLR, thank you.
Mhm.
And then I had to order the external power supply source for that, because condenser mics, for those of you that are not very savvy with this, they use phantom power. In other words,
Yes.
they need an external source of power in order for the microphone to come on. They're not like the regular condenser mics that you just plug in and boom, it works. You know, they have to have an external power source. And some of the software, like I had a mini mixer that had phantom power where you can actually run that to that, but the mixer did not actually run into my laptop. So then there was the whole debacle of trying to figure out, how do I use this condenser mic? First, the reason why I used it is because students were having trouble listening to the videos that I was presenting. Whenever I would play something on my trumpet, the mic would phase out because it just could not handle the power of all the sound coming into a computer mic. And then even when I would speak to the students, they say that the quality was poor. So I went ahead and solved that by getting a studio quality condenser mic, which I already had in the band room. I just didn't have the equipment to do it. So then I had to figure out how to do this, just this long debate that I kind of went back and forth, because regardless of what some administrators say, and I'm hoping that I don't get in trouble for saying this, regardless of what some administrators say, they truly don't understand. They truly don't understand, and they kind of really don't care. They just care about the numbers. So, but anyway, hope I don't get in trouble for that. But anyway,
you're speaking truths again, because from my experience, and you're speaking to your experience. In my experience,
it's true, but I still got to go to work on Monday.
Well, you know, I'm the boss over here, so who gonna fire me?
Right. So let me be careful with what I say.
Absolutely. I'll make sure your papers stay long. I can just tell you, in my experience, I was always being evaluated by people who were not musicians, or people who were not so musically inclined, or people who didn't always have the healthiest respect for the arts and the contribution that we make towards still teaching history and science and math and geography and so many different layers under the auspices of teaching music. You know, yeah. I feel like all my life I had to fight for my music program.
I feel you. So long story short, I had to figure out how to solve all of this. So the externals, I was able to find an external power supply source on Amazon, like $15, not bad. And it's still working. And I was able to hook that up to my computer, and my students could hear everything just fine. But the problem came in is whenever I plugged in the microphone, the students could not respond. If they unmuted their microphone, it wouldn't come through the Google Meet. So the microphone was absolutely essential to the students hearing my instruction, but I couldn't hear them respond. I couldn't hear them play anything. The only way I could hear them play anything was through whatever they would submit for an assignment, and if they put something in the chat box. So that kind of sparked a little bit of a controversy, because my administration felt like students need to be able to respond. And I agreed with them, but just given the circumstance, I didn't have any way to solve that problem.
Did your administration propose a solution? Because oftentimes they in my experience, we're just told to do something, but not necessarily told how to get it done.
Well, to make a long story short, what the guys at the music store, and I talked to everybody that I knew anything about music audio. I've been to several music stores in the local area, all the guitar centers that's near me. I spoke to Crystal Williams, who's the music technology chairperson for the state of Maryland for their Music Educator Association. And her husband is an IT guru. And both of them told me the same thing, that, look, it's nothing more that you can do. You have what you have, and that's it. But of course, that was not necessarily the answer that was going to be accepted. I had told them that the only thing that I could do was purchase a Scarlett Focusrite.
That's what I was wanting you to say. Is like, I knew the answer, but I wanted you to, I know the answer to this.
And I said, hey, that's $1,000. Are you gonna pay for it? So, you know, that's the only thing that I haven't done. I done purchased all this other stuff out of pocket. I can't buy anymore. So if you want to purchase that, then great. You know, we'll get this thing handled. So the response was that was to get together with technology support person at my school, which I had already done a couple of times. And he, first of all, this was a new problem.
Yes.
This was a new problem. This was something that nobody was prepared for, to be able to try to troubleshoot or fix or even proceed would be a problem. Mm-hmm. The only people that knows that are the people who do podcasts like you on a regular basis, or people who teach virtually all the time. And even when I talk to some of them, like Melanie Thompson, she has a virtual business doing private lessons. She told me the exact same thing, that sometimes you can't hear her students. And sometimes it's just a tech glitch. It's a tech glitch. Sometimes I have to exit Google Meet and come back in, or I have to tell the student to exit Google Meet and come back in in order for me to hear them. And sometimes it's just a tech issue, but this was an issue that was happening in every single class, no matter what. Finally, after about a month of this problem, maybe a month and a half, he was able to find information in Google online about this issue, because it wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't there before. This was a brand new problem. So finally, he came in for a day, spent like the whole day with me, and we figured out what it is that we needed to do and what it was. And maybe Google Meet had made an upgrade, because they made a couple of upgrades to their software. But there's a setting that you have to go in and change in Google Meet. And even till today, it's still not 100% proof, but still that solved that issue of me not being able to hear students. Of course, with that, I have a PA system that I run sound in externally, because I use Smart Music. Smart Music doesn't always play through Google Meet. There is a setting that you have to do inside the computer that I know nothing about, and very few people know how to get it there. Even the tech people, they don't know. The suggestion that was given to me is that I have to run all the sound externally, which I did from the beginning.
Yes.
But
run it through a mixer. Yeah. Run all the sound externally. Use your mixer. Use the mixer to feed the sound where you want to.
So, hey, the kids can hear quality sound, but they can't respond. I'm still responsible for what happens in my classroom. So, yeah, that was a fun experience.
You can only do what you can do, and leave it at that.
So, on a regular basis, I use an amp and a speaker. Mm-hmm. I have two speakers. One is at the door that plays into the classroom, and another speaker which sits right beside my desk, which comes right into the condenser mic, so that the students can hear the recordings and different things that we're presenting. I have an LED circle light that I use. I don't use it all the time. I use it a fraction of the time so that students can see me. Yeah, I see you. So, I have literally had to change the way that I have had to teach. And of course, I use the infamous torture device, Dr. Beat. They hate it, but to them, it's the torture device, but they're used to it now. So
what is this torture device you speak of?
Oh, it's a metronome. That's all it is.
Oh, gosh.
That's all it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can subdivide the beat instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, and do triplets and different things like that, and change the meter and hear different pitches and stuff like that. So, if you're really good with it, you can do all sorts of things with it. But, it's, my kids consider it to be the torture device, but they're used to it now.
Metronomes are the bane of some of my students' existence. I mean,
right.
It depends on the student, but what I hear from you is that you have been quite flexible in bending to the needs of your students. You have been very, very flexible in that, and adapting and adjusting. How have your expectations changed for your students?
That is a loaded question. That's a very loaded question. I'm going to come back to one of the software questions, comments in just a moment. I was going to talk about Flipgrid, but Flipgrid is a huge part of it.
Yes. Because you have to use more than one thing in order to get the job done. And I don't think everybody can understand that. There is no, I'll just use this one platform and everything will magically work. You have to.
Yeah. You have to use what you're comfortable with and what works for you and your students, and
That's it.
your unique situation. One thing that I've learned in education is that there are best practices, and then there are certain things that's exclusive to your personality as a teacher, your values as a teacher, your student population, your clientele, your community, your your community, your school district, your state. There's certain things that there's. I learned this probably by maybe in my third or fourth year teaching, is that there's no one way to skin a cat. Depending on what situation you're in, you can create a grade 5 band program, and that's the best you can do. And in some situations, best you can do is maybe a grade 2, 3, emerging 3 program, and that's the best you can do, and everybody's happy with that. So it kind of depends on just all of those different dynamics, as far as your unique situation, as far as what you are dealing with as an educator, because what you deal with in a rural community is going to be slightly different than what you deal with in an inner city, which is going to be different than what you deal with in a suburb, than what you might experience in a private school. They're going to vary from each different case as far as the population of students, the demographics, the number of students that you have. You may work at a school where you have 4 classes, and each class may have 20 to 30 students in it. And you may work at a school like mine where you have very, very large classes. How do you address the individual needs of every single student within that large class? That becomes a difficult thing. So there's no such thing as a one size fits all. You have to really make that adjustment to what you're doing as a teacher. And it's having that understanding that kind of makes me thankful that I've been able to teach in many different situations, whereas some people, they spend their whole entire career at one school, and where I've kind of bounced around a little bit. I'm happy to have had that experience because it's taught me that there's no such thing as a one size fits all. You have to know what works for your community. You have to know what works for your students, all within keeping to your ideals and your philosophies as being a teacher. And then as you teach in time, those ideas and values are going to evolve. They're not going to change. They're simply going to evolve. Those are just some things that I have learned. I have noticed that there is a difference in work in the students that I'm getting during this pandemic. If I could break it up into the segments that I'm seeing, I am seeing students who did well when they were in the classroom, were able to do everything that I asked of them, and then went home and absolutely regressed. I have some students that have been with me since day one. I'm talking about my 7th graders that I started at 6th grade. They will play the different note combinations, but the same note will come out. And they haven't figured it out in the ear that there's something different is supposed to happen. They know it, but they haven't figured it out in their inner ear yet. So they've totally regressed in that regards. Then I have some students that may have been an average student, but then they get into that virtual environment and they're just at home. They're in their room. They're doing their thing. They're happy as a butt. Like, what? Go outside? No. Come at the school? No, I'm good right here, baby. Give me the ice cream. I'm gonna do my lesson right here. Like they're just happy.
Yeah, you described all 3 of my kids. I've got one that's like, yes, I never want to go back to school again. I've got one kid that's just like, I don't know, mama. I don't know. And I've got one that's like, I just turned it in. I just emailed the teacher.
Yeah.
I let them know that Google whatever was down. Like, huh?
Yeah. And then you have that one, and you have that other type of student that is just totally disconnected. They may show up, they may not show up, that they don't say anything, they don't participate, the cameras, all these different things where, they don't turn in any work. I've had one student that have not turned in any work all semester long, never came to a class. I called his dad once because he was a new student to the class. He expressed that he didn't want his child in the class, and either we got disconnected or he hung up on me. I never reached out to that parent again. And unfortunately, his child's going to get an F from my class, unfortunately. But they haven't shown up to class. They haven't submitted any work. I've reached out that one time. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to continue to do that. Especially when you know where I work and you have my email address and information, and I get that you may not have wanted your child to have that class, but hey, you have to, be on top of things as a parent. I think I did my due diligence with that. But it's unfortunate because, that scholar is going to fail.
I can certainly say that I've seen all of my children's teachers. Like I said, I have 2 in high school and 1 in first grade, 11th grader, 9th grader. So this is her freshman year of high school. And she's never set foot in the school other than like going there for dance practice and then coming back home to learn online. Cause I done paid all this money for dance. You gonna dance. Mm-hmm. Right. But I just see their teachers really going above and beyond. Hey, you didn't submit an assignment. Hey, the deadline's coming up for this, that, and the other. These teachers are busting their behinds. And I know that they are dealing with way more than I would ever want to as a public school teacher. There's no way. Because I think like here in Texas, all you have to do is basically teach up until Christmas break and you get credit for the full year when it comes to teacher retirement. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of teachers are not coming back after Christmas break. That's it.
Wow. Okay. All right. Cool.
It's just too much. It's right. They're asking us to do normal things under abnormal circumstances without the support and the means to get it done.
Right. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And then you have there's one more category of student that I want to acknowledge, and this student fits different types of descriptions, but that student that is a good student at school in the classroom with a teacher, but they're struggling at home by themselves. And we have a lot of students that fit that description. Our high performing students, our middle performing students, and even especially our low performing students. Now, surprisingly, some of my low performing students are actually doing very well. They've actually have shocked me with just the level of quality of work that they submitted. Well, first and foremost, curriculum wise, I'm not teaching at the typical pacing that I had designed my curriculum at the very beginning of the semester. I'm teaching a very, very slow pace. In fact, with 7th graders, we just started right back over from the very beginning of instruction. Page 1 of the book, assembling the instrument, cleaning the instrument. We just started back over with everything. And we just progressed our way back to where we are now from where we left during the pandemic, when the pandemic first started. I have seen some very interesting things. And I think probably some of the most encouraging things that I have seen is that I have seen growth from students. And I've seen this before in person. I've seen this at the high school level. But at the middle school level, I've seen a student come into band class, never played the band instrument before, and in one semester outperforming some students that have been there since 6th grade. I've experienced that in 7th grade. I've experienced that in 8th grade. And some of those students have literally saved our performances. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But they have literally saved the day when it comes to some of our performances. But to answer your question, I have seen different varying changes in the quality of work. And after this semester, one thing that I feel is the most potent resource that a teacher has is just giving students feedback. With the technology issues that I had, the fact that they're at home and I have so many students, feedback has been a struggle on my part, is giving students the feedback. But when I'm able to give students feedback, that's when I see the most growth for them. Next semester, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to assess students. And a lot of it's just going to be eyeball. Okay, I've seen you do this, I've seen you do that. But I'm going to assess some students to see where they fall. But I'm going to have 3 tiers of student instruction. I'm going to have my level 1s, level 2s, and level 3s. My level 3s are the students that no matter what I give them, they're going to outperform and outshine everybody. No matter what I explain to them, they're already ahead of the curve. So my level 3s, I'm going to supplement their lesson by giving them material that's going to be challenging to them. And they can actually work independently away from the rest of the class. My level 2s is basically the 80% of where everybody else is going to be, like that 80% of the class that falls right in the middle. That's going to be my level twos. And I may have a smaller level two, maybe bigger, but they're going to be my level twos. And that's where all of my instruction is going to be designed to. And then I'm going to have my level ones. My level ones are going to be my students that are struggling to grasp the general concept and may need to go a little bit slower. And what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to pair my level ones with my level threes. And we're going to do student learning. And what I had to do is I actually had to create a separate Google Classroom for each instrument. So my flutes have one Google Classroom and they have their own Google Meet. So my clarinets have one and vice versa for every instrument. That way, if I brought in someone to do a clinic, they have that space to do that, because we just wouldn't be able to do that in the regular classroom meet. So I had to create that. So what I'm going to do is probably maybe a couple of days out of the week is allow the level threes to go in there with the level ones and assist the level ones with their assignment, because I've just learned in experience, and some directors disagree with this because they kind of don't trust the kids to be able to teach things because they don't want them to teach bad habits. And trust me, I've been there, I've done that, but the benefits are undeniable, that when kids teach kids, they learn better, they learn faster. And you may have to go back as a director and kind of fix a few things that might have been taught incorrectly, and that's okay, but the benefits are there. And then one thing about it is, for the students who are actually doing the teaching, they actually teaching themselves at the same time, because they're having to break down a concept that they never had to break down before. So those are things that are, you okay over there? You look like
yes, you are on fire. You are on fire. This is like a lot of the principles that I abide by. These are the things that I wholeheartedly already practice. And you're finding solutions and you're fixing it. You're like being proactive about things. You are like an educator's educator, just hands down. You're an educator's educator.
Yeah.
Your passion, it reigns. So
yeah. So that's going to be what we're going to be working on in January when we come back. And I'm going to change my assignment format. Typically, I give an assignment on Friday after I teach the lesson. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to give the assignment on Wednesday, and everybody has all class period to submit the assignment. And Thursday, we're going to come back and I'm going to give them feedback. We're going to listen to each other's assignments. And I'm going to give them feedback, what was done right, what wasn't done right, what can be fixed. And then Friday, they're going to do their final submission. If it's not submitted by Friday, then it's a 0. And it's going to stay at 0 until they submit it. One thing that has been totally, and I'm still in this boat, even after we're out, is that I've given students so much grace that I've given them all the way back to October to go back and make up work. And when you have 270 students trying to complete late work, and that's not all 270 students, but when you got 270 students trying to submit late work, that is an overwhelming task. And looking for one assignment can be like finally looking for a needle in a haystack. So next semester, we're definitely going to enforce the 10-day late work policy, that if an assignment is late, it's going to be deducted 10 points, and they have 10 days from the date that the assignment is due to make up the assignment, because I just could not keep up with that workload. I just couldn't keep up with it. What I want to try to do is try to increase the value of instruction and the music program at large, because I can't give them feedback the way that I would if I was sitting on the podium and all of them were sitting in front of me. We're not in that environment anymore. And even just the concept of a virtual concert, which I'll talk about in just a moment, just the concept is doing a virtual concert. We have to change what we're doing as educators, because we couldn't have concerts, we couldn't have gatherings and different things. And I'm pretty sure Texas is probably just like most of the South. They probably still have football games and stuff like that, which
it was crazy.
In the middle of a pandemic, I don't think that was necessarily the best decision, but
I can tell you,
that's just me.
My son he's junior varsity on the football team, and he's not playing right now because he's got a shoulder injury from football. But the varsity team ended up, the whole offensive line ended up having a quarantine because one person got sick. Football, they don't play about no football down here in Texas. They build these stadiums and then we'll build the school. You know,
right. Right. So, I get it. Football runs the South. But I just feel like it's an unnecessary risk. It's an unnecessary risk.
Now to that, because I know band and football go hand in hand. I've seen the high school that my daughter is at, the high school band where she is, they've been able to still place in UIL. They've still been able to place in these state level competitions. And this is their first year as a band. And they even had an episode where a lot of the kids there had to quarantine because somebody decided to throw a party and the kids went to the party. And I was like, what happened to all the sousaphones? Like, where y'all at? But the kids do good at school. It's when they're not at school that stuff is going down. At least that's what's happening here.
Right. Well, as you know, the band programs in Texas is just on another level. When it comes to just the quality and magnitude of the band programs in Texas, it's almost like its own country. I wish I had a fraction of what you all have in Texas. In fact, I'll go as far to say this, and I said this to a colleague of mine. It's kind of funny. We kind of flopped a little bit. When I was at Jenkins, he was at the middle school, and I was teaching high school, and of course he was teaching middle school. And then I moved to McDonough, Georgia, and began teaching middle school. And then he moved to Augusta and began teaching high school. And he and I came to the same conclusion. And even some other people have said this to me before as well, especially college directors and people who've been teaching for a long time. Every band program needs an assistant director. Whether or not you have 200 students or 30, it doesn't matter. Just with the amount of things that they want us to be able to do, and just with the instruction aspect of it, we at the very least need 2 directors running things. And when you communicate that with them about sports, they understand that perfectly, because you can't expect a head football coach to run the whole entire team by himself. Not only does he have an assistant coach, but he has a coach for the line, for the offensive line. You have a coach for the defensive line. You have a coach for the defensive back, offensive back. You have a coach for special teams. You have
trainers. They have everything.
Yeah, and as the band director, you're kind of like the one-man army, and you kind of have to do everything all on yourself. We have to hire out those positions as far as bringing in someone to work with each particular section. Especially if you're teaching high school, you already know that probably one of the most vital things. You can make it if you got a percussion instructor. If you got a percussion instructor, you can make it. It'd be great to have somebody for woodwinds or somebody for brass, but unless you're a percussionist, even if you are a percussionist, you just need somebody to run that percussion section. It's just the nature of that instrument. They need lots of. If you got a good percussion section, your band can survive.
Yeah, because I'm certainly listening for those quads and some other things out there.
Your marching band can survive. Let me say that your marching
band can survive, but I'm still listening for certain qualities in those woodwinds that because I think our ears are a little bit more fine tuned than the average listener. There are certain qualities that I'm looking for, even while I'm watching them do this core style marching. That's another thing. Lots of core style marching over here. They don't do it like the 100 over here.
Yeah.
But they have a band called the 100, the Marching 100 over here. I was like, oh, they're here. The Rattlers are here. And I looked and I was like, no, that's not them. I was so disappointed. I thought I found my people. I did not find my people. Have you been able to collaborate with, I know like Lanice just had a clinic for flute that was online over the weekend, I think. Lanice Bostic.
Oh, wow. That would have been a great resource for my students. I wish I had known about it.
I've had her posted in the group. I was like, Lanice, put it in the group, girl.
Listen, I'm just now, our last day for school was Friday. I'm just now in a position to put in my grades. My focus for the past 2 weeks has been on my virtual concert. That's where my
it's like
focus.
You're saying you might as well be saying an expletive, virtual concert.
Yeah, that has been where my focus is. And of course, when you're doing something for the first time, there's a lot of figuring out that you have to do. I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my fellow middle school band directors and rattlers, today Milford, who is a pretty young but brilliant band director. He is a band director at Druid Hill Middle School, and he put on a virtual concert in November for his students, and they did some really, really good work. In fact, he in fact, one of the pieces that they did, the Sesame Street theme song became viral. So if you look it up, Druid Hills Middle School Sesame Street song, it should pop up. But they did a virtual concert, and all the students pre-recorded themselves from home, and he put the video together and did all that. So at the start of this pandemic, my administration wanted me to have a band performance at the end of the semester, a live band performance. And I did not try to fight that battle. I let my superiors fight that battle for me. So basically the district stance on that was that middle school bands could not meet. So we came to the conclusion, I suggested a virtual concert. So they were okay with that. So that's something that we can present to parents. I had never done a virtual concert before, didn't know what all went to it. Only thing I know is that I participated in some virtual performances, but I have not put one together myself.
There's a lot that goes into it. And I can only imagine. You have 200 plus students. Me, I'm dealing with 44 over here. My performances are never mandatory. They're always like, okay, I'm just giving you guys an opportunity to share your music. Yeah. And so with that 44, they can either pre-record it or not do it or do it live. Those are the three options. So
yeah, I'm going to tell you what I have learned from this. I took a lot of cues from him. Number one, you're not going to get the videos to line up perfectly. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to break it up into two segments. There's the visual aspect of it and the audio aspect of it. Students submit their recordings. I gave all the recordings to my tech person at my school who was a band person. He was in band in high school, and he had volunteered to do the mixing of the videos, and he could not get them to line up for a number of many reasons, which I'm gonna talk about in just a second. But he could not get them to line up. And then funny story is I actually let the class listen to it. Like, all right, so when we all don't do it right, this is what it sounds like. Oh, the chat box lit up. The chat box lit up. And it was a funny little episode, but we kind of realized that, okay, we need to get our act together.
That's good.
It was virtually impossible to try to get all of those tracks to line up unless you had professional musicians and they performed each track flawlessly. And even in that, you still going to have to do the whole audio aspect of it. So that's where I came in. I had the most experience using audio technology. So what we did was we extracted the audio track from the videos that students submitted. And some of them we actually had them to do through Smart Music, which helped out a lot because there's a function in Smart Music. There's actually a video that Crystal Williams shared with me on how to actually take the tracks from Smart Music, download it, put it all in Audacity, and Audacity will literally line everything up for you.
For free.
You have to go in and maybe tweak a few stuff. So, but it'll line up and kind of let you hear what the ensemble sounds like. So I had to take, with a combination of the videos that students submitted and Smart Music submissions, create audio tracks of them, put them in Audacity, and make all of these things line up. Now, if you know anything about studio production and these web-based platforms, you can see the beats, even though you can't quite, it's not exactly metered, but you can see the beats. You can actually see the sound. So I had to get used to that and trying to move the cut. Now, the first time I've ever done anything like that was, of course, back in college when I used GarageBand, and I was just literally playing around with that thing, and then I took a class at Florida A&M when I was working on composition on how to do that kind of stuff. And, it was basically an entry-level class. It wasn't anything that was like putting an expert. And that was like probably 6 years ago. So here I am with all these tracks. I'm using Audacity. I'm trying to figure out how to work Audacity. Probably, but maybe after about 4 hours of trying to put these tracks together, I finally kind of knew what I was doing and what I needed to do. And it's kind of like one of those things where you have to practice that to get better at. So first and foremost, I had to find tracks that were consistent. And I built all of my ensemble pieces off the percussion. Everybody else can be off just a little bit. You can fix those things quite easily, but percussion's got to be locked on. They have to be locked on. So I had to have my percussion students in both groups kind of go back and resubmit stuff, sometimes 3 and 4 times. because the tempo just had to be there because that's what we're building everything off of. My little brass students, they were next. So you kind of build it kind of like that pyramid philosophy that we have in Florida as far as pyramid.
I like how
you
got
build
your
it from
base.
the bottom up. You build it from the bottom up, and trombones, tuba, trombones, baritones, and then either depending on the piece would either be trumpets or saxophones next, and then you add your flutes and clarinets in. And I didn't have any French horn submissions, so I never had to worry about that. And I had like maybe a few oboe students or oboe bassoon students that I had to mix in as well. So I just kind of build it from the bottom up, and it turned out really well. There were a few pieces where I had to kind of snippet some stuff and silence some stuff and do like video editing stuff and move beats into place because they weren't perfect. I had one flute player, very good flute student. Sisters in the band at the high school. She did her recording, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but she got off by one beat. I asked her to submit it again, and she never submitted. And I said, you know what? I can make this work. Only thing I got to do is chop this and move this over, and everything else is going to line up. So I had to kind of figure out some things as we were meted, and the students that may have had more wrong notes than what was acceptable. If their overall track was good, I just kind of quietly muted that little one section so it doesn't ruin the music. Of course, you have the struggle babies whose tracks weren't in the audio at all, but they were in the final product because we wanted to make sure that every student felt like they contributed in some way. So one thing I learned from this is that it's okay not to use all your submissions. It's okay not to use all your submissions. I think for each instrument, I use maybe 2 or 3 tracks, 4 at the most per instrument. And that was just to make it sound like it was a group playing, because if you use one person on an instrument, it's going to sound like a small ensemble. But we want it to sound like a 70-piece virtual band. Of course, all 70 of those pieces, oh God, no. They're not going to line up unless you're just like an expert. You're an expert sound engineer and you got top of the line equipment where you can just make all this stuff work. So that I'm not. I got Audacity in my school laptop. That's it. That's all I got. So
Audacity is free. The school laptop was given to you. You learn how to nudge, mute, you can crossfade on Audacity. I'm not sure if there's a limit to how many tracks you can stack in there though.
I did not encounter a limit issue. Probably the worst thing that I encountered was that, like I said, it's been years since I've taken an audio engineering class. Trying to re-familiarize myself with some of these terms, the mono tracks versus the stereo tracks. I'm like, well, why is this coming up as one line and this is coming up as a double line? And then probably maybe around the time that I was finishing my last video, that's when it clicked through Googling and reading stuff that some tracks are in stereo and then some of the tracks are mono. And I was like, oh, I remember now. Because it's been years since I've taken an audio engineering class.
I call it failing forward. You failed forward because every little mistake found you closer to getting to the finished product.
Right. So that was something that I had to do. So we finally got the videos finished. I haven't looked at them yet. When you posted what you posted, that's actually when I was about to look at them. I was just like, I hope it's good. So we're going to be posting that to YouTube and allowing students to view it. And if the students and their parents view it, we're going to give the students extra credit. Just let them go to a Google form and let them fill out the Google form and get extra credit. Thank you, Crystal Williams, because Crystal Williams just made me realize how useful Google Forms are. They are just, especially right now, and even just on a regular basis, Google Forms are so useful. I do tests, quizzes, sign up sheets through Google Forms. And, I'm a little old school, so it's kind of like I'm trying to change the way that I think about things. I don't like change. I'm like a lot of other people. I don't like a whole lot of change, but you got to learn how to make adjustments. So
you got to adjust, fire, and drive on. That's the military saying, adjust, fire, and drive on. I'm like in total awe. I feel like I've met my peer, because a lot of times it seems like we're operating in isolation. We're just doing stuff and it's nobody else for us to bounce stuff off of or to get any feedback from or to find a solution to something or to figure, it's like operating in a vacuum. It's just me.
Yeah, a lot of times us music people, we're the only people in our content area at our school. There's the per grade level, you have the science department, math department, reading department, and that's by grade level. And the fine arts, the PEs, the connections, what we say over here on the East Coast, I'm not exactly sure what they call it in Texas, but the connection classes. Yeah, the arts, the home ec, the chorus, band, technology classes, the electives. They kind of group us into an island all by ourselves, but it's still not necessarily our content area. So a lot of times, if you don't work in a 2-person setting, or out in Texas, y'all have 5 band directors on at a school at a time. Unless you're working in a setting like that, you're basically on an island by yourself. I'm so thankful for my music supervisor, Pam Burgess. She is so supportive. I can call her anytime and ask her about things, and she can give me her perspective on that. My mentor, Ms. Jenkins, who's at Eagles Landings Middle School, Renee Jenkins, she has given me lots of resources and even just giving me assurance that, I'm kind of moving in the right direction. I'm thankful that I have the people around me that I do, because as Travis Kemper would say, all my friends are band directors. That's probably as many times as I've been to his band room just to watch him teach. And he's a phenomenal teacher. I would have loved to have worked with Travis Kemper at some point in my career. Phenomenal teacher. He has this saying that he says, all my friends are band directors. Even though we battle each other in the arena, as you would say, we're all friends. We're all in this together. Dr. Julian E. White and Donovan Wells, they're friends, even though they go at it all the time, but they're friends, they're colleagues, they respect each other.
There's this unspoken camaraderie that I don't think everybody understands. Because, we can speak the same language, we can use the same jargon, we can relate in these different ways that, like I said, a lot of times it just feels like you're operating in a vacuum with nobody. There's nobody else who understands my special music needs. So I'm grateful to continue to reach out to others who are doing the things that we do. And I'm really hell bent on giving voice to people who look like me and people who look like you. I'm really hell bent on making sure that our voices continue to be amplified, because what we have to say is valuable, and what we do will last beyond us. What we do will last beyond the music on the page.
Right.
That was the main idea there. I don't know. You have been the best interview I've done so far, just straight up. I was like, yeah, it's going to take 15, 20 minutes. Look at it. The thing talking about an hour and some change, really, 10 minutes.
Honestly, I didn't even know when our interview started. We just started talking.
We did. But that's what it is as musicians. Music is not to be done in isolation. It's meant to be shared. I don't see me doing anything else.
Right. I think sometimes in my reflection as a music educator, music encompasses so many different values. And when we focus too much on one value, I don't think that music education and music is accomplishing its goals. There is the emotional, there is the art, there is the logical, and there's the science aspect of it. There's the educational aspect of it. Music encompasses so many different things, and it's a place where we bring all of those things together. And I have had moments in my teaching career where I have definitely been the example of this. But when you focus too much on one thing, I think that music isn't accomplishing its full value. It's kind of like that administrator, and I've met many that have fit this description throughout my teaching. They say they care about you as a person and as a teacher, but they're strictly by the numbers. They will sacrifice you in a heartbeat, so as long as it's not their head on the chopping block. And then I have administrators that were exactly the opposite. They will fight for you. They will be fair with you. They get it. They are a teacher's administrator. You know what I'm saying? If you mess up, they'll tell you that you mess up, but they will still have your back. They won't throw you underneath the bus. And I think that many times in education, not just in music, sometimes we get things out of whack. I'll be the first person to admit, sometimes, it needs to be about the child, the student, the scholar, and what they're going through, not necessarily their academic pursuits, but sometimes you need to focus on them as a person, what they're going through, what they're dealing with, what they feel. And then sometimes You have to teach them to put that aside to press forward towards the goal. But there's a time and place for that. We teach those things in music. But like I said, you cannot move to one side or the other more than you are. You have to kind of try to stay right there in the middle of the spectrum, is what one of my professors would say. He equated a good band director as far as being the pedagogue and the coach. You have some teachers that are just good pedagogues. They know the pedagogy like the back of their hand. They can regurgitate it in their sleep. And that's what makes them good educators. And then some educators are good coaches. They know how to coach. They know how to inspire. They know how to motivate. They may not necessarily have everything in place for them to be able to teach pedagogy, but they know how to coach. They know how to manage. They know how to push that person and get that person where they need to be. And as a band director, you kind of have to find what end of the spectrum that you're on and try to meet in the middle, because you have some band directors that are really good pedagogues. You have some band directors that are not very good pedagogues, but they're very good coaches. And that's what makes them successful. Their bands may not sound very well, but the kids love band. They love what they do. And then you have the pedagogue. And I'm not saying this, I don't want to give pedagogues a bad name. I don't want to give coaches a bad name.
I understand what you're saying exactly.
You got some band directors. I'll be honest with you, there's some teachers out there, not just band directors, but teachers out there that are just tremendous pedagogues, but they hate students. Can't stand them, but they got a job.
It's like, I love teaching, but I hate students.
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
I'll be honest with you. That sounds crazy, but I can kind of relate because I'm an introvert.
I think a lot of us are like
I'm an introvert, so I'm just like, I love you. Just leave my room. Just please go home.
I think a lot of us are extroverted introverts by nature.
Right.
I think ambivert is what it's called. We're like, I'm all about this music, but when the music is done, get on.
Yes. I go through different phases of the school year where I just kind of move from different things to another. Like some days I walk in my classroom, I'm serious. And then some days I'm walking in my classroom and I'm just a complete clown. Red Ribbon Week, I told my kids I was going to dress up every single day that week. So one day I came dressed as, day one was like camouflage and fatigues day. So day two was like hat day. So I came dressed as a cowboy. I'm talking about everything, even like, what's the guy that went viral on YouTube? He do like the Mexican dance with the black guy with the cowboy hat. Yeah. I came in dressed just like him on Tuesday. But Wednesday I came in dressed as Deadpool, and the rest of the week didn't work out because we ended up missing Thursday because I think we had like a tornado or something like that. But anyway, like I have days. It was just a tornado. Just a little tornado. So we didn't go to school that day. You have different personality shifts as a teacher. Some days you come in like, hey, hey, this is what we doing. Whatever you're doing, I don't care. We doing this, And then you got some days where you just come in just like, hey man, how y'all feeling? How you doing? You know what I'm saying? Tell me what's going on. And as you have like those different shifts as an educator, and you get to know your kids and your kids get to know you, and you kind of know what day you need to come in and be what on what day. It's just it's learning. I haven't been teaching as long as you, but
that doesn't mean anything.
Every day
it's relationship building,
right?
And the kids see that you care.
Yeah, every day I'm coming in and I'm learning something new. And I think probably one of the most powerful things is just in teaching in general, I've learned a lot about me. And I think that had I never become a teacher, some of the things about myself, I probably would have never learned, and those are just like aha moment. Like you think you're teaching the kid, but the kid's really teaching you.
Absolutely. I learned I'm a professional procrastinator. I'm at a point now where my students have like gone on to, I've had several last names over the course of this educator career. Okay. So I can tell which babies, what phase they're from by what they call me. So if they're calling me Miss Freeney, I just finished my first year of law school. I'm like, oh, that was a baby I had like back in the early 2000s.
Right. They're making more money than us, man.
Yeah. It was either Freeney or Miss Byers or Miss Battle.
Kids that are real estate agents and pharmacists, like, man, y'all are balling. A couple of them just graduated college this weekend, and some of them are like fast tracked and finished in like 3 years. And I'm just like, oh my God, my babies, they're like doing it. They are doing it. They're still my babies. Right.
Yeah. You're OG. 11 years. That's OG.
I think I might be year 12. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was like 20. It'd
Year
be
12.
like when when the 2020-2021 school year ends, that will be the end of my 21st year, if that makes sense. Because I started in 2000. What else? Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation that we didn't cover?
Well, we didn't get a chance to talk about Flipgrid, but that's cool. We mentioned it, and
Yeah.
Flipgrid, I think it has been like a huge part of instruction and just being able to give feedback. The cool thing about Flipgrid is that not only can you see it, but the other students can see their work as well. That's the cool thing about Flipgrid. So it gives them an opportunity to kind of see what everyone else is doing, not just you as a teacher. Because if they just make a video on their cell phone or on their laptop and then submit it in Google Classroom, you're the only person that can see it. But if they do it in Flipgrid, everybody can see it. That's a cool thing. It's also a double-edged sword because, we got a little bit of bullying going on. And, some people don't like to put things in Flipgrid because they don't want their work to be shown. And so that's a new hurdle that we have to try to get over as educators, is trying to get students to be comfortable and letting them know that, having everybody understand the classroom is a safe place. We're not here to ridicule anybody. We're not here to make anybody feel bad. That's not why we're here. Of course, you got those kids that can do very well, and they did, like, you really just sat here and played two measures for real. Like like for real, that's what you do. You're the star tuba player, and you literally submitted two measures. Are you serious right now? So you do have those moments, but I'm talking about the moments where students are earnestly giving their best, and that's the best that they can do. And they need that, they need that feedback, and they need that encouragement at that time.
Success is a sliding scale for a lot of my students.
Right.
Not everybody's in the same place.
Right. And I think that a lot of our administrators don't realize that, what you just said, that a lot of administrators, don't mean to get on my soapbox here, but throughout my teaching career, I have been told that bad administrators were bad teachers, and they became administrators just so they can get out the classroom. And I have seen a lot of truth to that. And a lot of times, administrators are really good at administrating the paperwork, the policy. They're good at it, but they're not good at who they're administrating to, if that makes sense to you. They forget that it's a sliding scale, and that you as a teacher, we realize this, that our success lies in the student success. And in the eyes of some administrators, okay, if that's true, then that means that depends on what you do as a teacher. Where you and I both know that it also depends on what the student is willing to do as well. The students have to do the work. They have to grow. If your job is to do the watering, the student's job is to be the seed and grow. And if they don't grow, then it doesn't mean that you didn't do your job as a teacher. You gave the students the knowledge. You broke it down to them. You explained and re-explained and give it to them in many different ways. You gave them opportunity for growth. So at that particular point, it's not really your fault as a teacher, because you can't make, the old saying is you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can slap some salt in his mouth and make him thirsty, but you can't make him drink.
I like that.
So in this time of not knowing what the student's home situation is, we have to extend a lot of grace. And because of that grace, the quality of work that we're receiving for students probably isn't as good as what it would be if students were in person. Yeah. However, you still have that same judgment and evaluation and assessment that you would have if the students were in person. And what can you do?
Where's the grace for the teacher?
Yeah. And that's kind of what a lot of people are feeling right now.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers are feeling that right now. So I pray that this is a safe space where I can say that, and I don't get any repercussions for saying that. But that's what a lot of teachers are feeling right now. We did not become teachers to get a paycheck. If I wanted a paycheck,
it wouldn't be looking like the one I was getting.
Right. If I wanted a paycheck, I would have taken that $50,000 nuclear scholarship that I was offered in 12th grade for the Navy. They offered me a $50,000 nuclear scholarship to go to school, major in nuclear engineering, and then go in the Navy and operate the nuclear engines on their boats.
Yeah, that definitely beats my $20,000 sign-on bonus for the Army. So
if I wanted a paycheck, first of all, in the civilian sector, do you know how much money a nuclear engineer makes? 6 figures easily. Sunshine. So if I wanted a paycheck, I would have never got into teaching. I would have never got into teaching. Teachers teach because they're passionate about what they do. They're passionate about their content area. They like kids. They want to see them do well. That's why we do what it is that we do.
Do you think things will change going forward now that parents have seen they may be seeing their children in a new light?
I think that there will be a newfound respect for teachers. As far as what that's going to look like, I can't say.
Yeah.
I will say this. What I would like to see as a teacher, what I would like to see is, number one, I would like to see that all teachers get a pay raise. We deserve more money than what it is that we're doing. We have to get several degrees just to make as much money as somebody else in another profession who only has one bachelor's degree, several degrees and years of experience. So yes, teachers need to make significantly more money. The second thing that I would also like to see is that I would like to see all teacher student loans completely taken care of, regardless of where you teach, whether you teach in a Title I school, regardless of the subject or content area, teachers need their student loans forgiven. I know that that's probably going to spark a huge debate, but I feel like you're always going to have naysayers. I feel like those are two things that teachers in the U.S. need to have in the immediate future.
I mean, this has been an excellent talk, but I didn't want to stop the flow. I want, free form, just go ahead and talk, say what's on your mind, speak your piece, speak your truth, speak to your experience, because there are others out there who can easily identify with a whole lot of what you said. It needs to be shared and seen.